Dr. Elena Reyes had been staring at the same data sets for 18 hours straight when the pattern emerged. The lukewarm coffee she'd been nursing splashed across her keyboard as she jolted forward, eyes wide with disbelief. The signal from deep space wasn't random noise. It pulsed with mathematical precision that couldn't exist in nature, a repeating sequence that slowly resolved into something impossible to ignore. "Johnson, are you seeing this?" Her voice cracked as she called to her colleague across the silent observatory floor. The night shift at Arecibo was usually uneventful, years of listening to cosmic silence punctuated by the occasional pulsar or quasar emission. Johnson wheeled his chair over, squinting at the screen. "That can't be right. Run the verification protocol." Elena's fingers trembled as she initiated the sequence designed to eliminate false positives. The computer hummed, processing the data through 14 different algorithms. Each one confirmed what she already knew in her gut. The signal was artificial, and it contained a map, coordinates pinpointing Earth's location with terrifying accuracy. By sunrise, the observatory buzzed with activity. Government officials in suits spoke in hushed tones while technicians ran additional tests. Elena hadn't slept, her eyes bloodshot as she translated the mathematical sequence into visual data on the main display screen. "It's not just coordinates," she explained to the room of increasingly anxious faces. "There's a message embedded in the mathematical constants. 2 words, repeating." She touched a key, and the translation appeared on screen. "Assessment imminent." Within hours, similar reports flooded in from radio telescopes around the globe. The message had been broadcast on multiple frequencies simultaneously, ensuring humanity would receive it regardless of which instruments were listening. Global leaders convened in emergency sessions, their faces grim on split-screen news broadcasts as speculation ran wild. 3 days later, as dawn broke over Tokyo, the first sightings began. Massive crystalline vessels materialized in Earth's orbit, their surfaces reflecting sunlight in hypnotic patterns of gold and silver. They appeared without warning, without the conventional disturbances in spacetime that scientists expected from faster-than-light travel. One moment Earth's orbital space was empty. The next, 12 enormous ships hung in perfect geometric formation around the planet. Traffic stopped in major cities as people poured into streets, staring upward at the visitors visible even in daylight. The vessels maintained equidistant positions around Earth, their forms unlike any human design, organic yet geometric, with surfaces that seemed to ripple like water despite their apparent solidity. Military jets scrambled worldwide, approaching the vessels with caution. The ships made no aggressive moves. They responded to no communications across any frequency. They simply watched. Elena stood on the observatory roof, a pair of high-powered binoculars trained on the nearest vessel visible on the horizon. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from colleagues, government officials, and increasingly, journalists. She ignored them all, focusing instead on the visitor's strange, beautiful form. "What do you want?" she whispered into the morning air. As if in answer, every digital screen on Earth, from smartphones to jumbo displays in Times Square, flickered briefly before displaying the same image, a countdown clock starting at exactly 30 days, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. And it was counting down. Nobody knew what would happen when it reached 0, but Elena felt a strange certainty as she watched the seconds tick away. This wasn't the end of humanity's story. It was just the beginning. The first probe appeared over Manhattan at precisely 8:17 a.m., 5 days after the ships arrived. Traffic screeched to a halt as the sleek, teardrop-shaped object descended through the canyon of skyscrapers, its metallic surface shifting colors like oil on water. When it reached street level, hovering 10 feet above the asphalt, the crowd that gathered maintained a cautious distance, all except for 7-year-old Mia Chen, who approached with fearless curiosity. "Mia, get back here," her mother screamed, frozen in terror as her daughter extended a small hand toward the alien object. The probe emitted no sound, no detectable radiation. It simply hung in the air, a perfect teardrop about the size of a small car. As Mia's fingers nearly touched its surface, the probe gently moved sideways, maintaining the exact same distance from her hand as she pursued it, turning their interaction into a strange dance. Within hours, similar reports flooded in from every continent. The probes, thousands of them, descended through Earth's atmosphere, bypassing all detection systems until they were visible to the naked eye. They moved with purpose, appearing in population centers, military installations, power plants, schools, hospitals, and natural landmarks. Colonel Jackson Wee stood on the Pentagon roof, surrounded by nervous aides and security personnel, watching 3 probes hover over the building's courtyard. His orders from the Joint Chiefs were clear: test their capabilities without provoking hostilities. Initiate the EMP, he commanded into his secure radio. The electromagnetic pulse generator had been rushed from DARPA's research facility overnight. It powered up with a high-pitched whine before releasing an invisible burst of energy directly at the nearest probe. Instead of disrupting the object as hoped, the probe absorbed the energy completely. Moments later, it transformed the captured power into a cascading light display, ripples of color flowing across its surface, like the aurora borealis concentrated into a teardrop. "It's beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Park beside him. Wei frowned. "It's also concerning. That was enough juice to knock out electronics for half a mile." Across the world in Lagos, Nigeria, 16-year-old Zara Okafor noticed something nobody else had reported yet. During a community meeting to discuss the water shortage, a crisis predating the alien arrival, she observed the probe hovering at the edge of the gathering, glowing brighter whenever voices remained calm and solutions were proposed. When arguments broke out, the probe's luminosity dimmed noticeably. Zara documented her observations in a social media post that went viral within hours. Soon, others reported similar correlations. The probes responded to human emotional states and behaviors, brightening around cooperation and dimming near conflict. Dr. Elena Reyes was summoned to Washington to brief a hastily assembled task force of scientists, military personnel, and government officials. She hadn't slept in days, surviving on caffeine and adrenaline. "The probes appear to be collecting data," she explained, gesturing to footage compiled from around the globe. "They're cataloging our infrastructure, yes, but they're especially interested in how we interact with each other, how we solve problems, how we handle crises." The room fell silent as security footage played, showing a probe observing firefighters rescuing trapped victims after a building collapse in Brazil. Another clip showed a probe following doctors working across borders during an outbreak response in Cambodia. "They're studying us," General Martinez concluded grimly. "Yes," Elena agreed, "but not for the reasons you might think. These aren't targeting systems identifying strategic assets. They're evaluating us." The conversation halted abruptly as every phone, tablet, and computer screen in the room flickered. The countdown clock that had become a constant presence in everyone's lives adjusted, now displaying 25 days, 7 hours, 18 minutes, 42 seconds. Outside the Pentagon windows, the 3 probes suddenly changed direction in perfect synchronization, moving toward the National Mall where thousands of citizens had gathered in both protest and prayer. The assessment was underway, and nobody knew the criteria by which humanity was being judged. The New York Stock Exchange suspended trading after 3 consecutive days of panic selling. Financial analysts who had predicted economic collapse were surprised when markets stabilized by the end of the second week. Humanity, as it turned out, was remarkably adaptable, even to the presence of alien observers. In New Delhi's sprawling Rajpath, over 2 million people gathered in a demonstration of global unity. They arranged themselves to form a massive peace symbol visible from orbit, their bodies creating a living message to the watchers above. Drone footage of the gathering went viral, showing the probes hovering in a perfect circle around the formation, their surfaces pulsing with increased luminosity. "They're responding to us," Dr. Elena Reyes explained during a UN emergency session, her image broadcast to delegates who couldn't travel to New York. These demonstrations are valuable data points, but we need to understand they're observing everything, our divisions as well as our unity. Those divisions were growing more pronounced. In a Montana compound, retired Marine Jacob Harmon led a militia of 300 preparing for what they believed was imminent invasion. They stockpiled supplies in an extensive underground bunker network, conducting drills with military precision. "The government's lying to us," Harmon told his followers, their faces illuminated by lamplight as they avoided electronic devices that might attract the probes. "These things are the advanced scouts. The real force is coming when that countdown hits 0. Alina struggled to maintain scientific objectivity as she tracked probe movement patterns worldwide. They concentrated around natural disasters, conflicts, and humanitarian crises. Filming firefighters rescuing earthquake victims in Chile, documenting doctors treating patients during a malaria outbreak in Southeast Asia, observing peace negotiations in Ukraine. "They're especially interested in how we handle adversity," she told Colonel Wei during their daily briefing. "Not just how we respond to them, but how we respond to our own problems." Wei nodded grimly. "Some people aren't handling it well." He slid a tablet across the desk, showing footage of a radical group in Kazakhstan launching surface-to-air missiles at one of the motherships. Alina watched in astonishment as the missiles, instead of detonating on impact, transformed mid-flight. Their metallic components dissolved and reformed, creating thousands of iridescent butterfly-like creatures that dispersed into the atmosphere. "That happened 6 hours ago," Wei said. "The butterflies appear to be harmless. They're dissolving into organic compounds that early analysis suggests may actually help clean atmospheric pollution." "They turned weapons into environmental restoration tools," Elena whispered. That's not the response of beings who want to harm us." The colonel's expression remained skeptical, or it's psychological warfare of the highest order. Their conversation was interrupted as Elena's assistant burst into the room. "You need to see this," he said, turning on the wall screen. Live footage showed a massive tsunami bearing down on the Indonesian coastline, an unexpected seismic event that had generated waves over 30 feet high. But what drew gasps from everyone watching was the response of the alien vessels. 3 of the motherships had moved from their orbital positions, descending into the atmosphere directly above the approaching waves. As the tsunami reached the shore, the ships emitted a pale blue field that slowed the water's momentum, reducing what would have been catastrophic destruction to manageable flooding. The probes swarmed the area in unprecedented numbers, some directly assisting rescue efforts by illuminating survivors trapped in debris, others seemingly studying the human emergency response. The countdown clock on Elena's phone adjusted slightly. 15 days, 3 hours, 42 minutes, 17 seconds. "They intervened," she said, her voice barely audible over the feed of rescue operations. "They chose to help." Colonel Wei's expression softened slightly. "But why? What do they really want from us?" Dr. Samir Kapoor wiped sweat from his brow as he carefully photographed the newly uncovered petroglyph. The remote Amazon excavation had been underway for months before the aliens arrived, a routine archaeological study of an ancient settlement. Nothing about it had seemed remarkable until yesterday when his team uncovered a sealed chamber beneath the main temple structure. "This can't be a coincidence," he murmured, examining the carved stone panel depicting unmistakable crystalline vessels, identical to those currently orbiting Earth. Beside the ships were humanoid figures arranged in concentric circles, their arms raised toward the visitors. At the center of the panel, a series of symbols matched the mathematical constants from the alien signal. Samir's satellite phone rang, an unusual occurrence this deep in the rainforest. Dr. Kapoor speaking. "This is Dr. Elena Reyes from the Global Response Team." The voice sounded tired but urgent. "We need to talk about what you found." "How did you even know?" "You're not the only one," she interrupted. We're receiving reports from archaeological sites worldwide, cave paintings in Australia, submerged ruins in the Mediterranean, a hidden chamber beneath the pyramid of Khafre in Egypt, all showing the same ships, the same symbols. Samir's hands trembled as he processed the implications. They've been here before. Many times, it seems, Alina confirmed, dating back at least 15,000 years, with regular intervals, some form of recurring assessment. 3 days later, Samir found himself in a secured conference room beneath the Pentagon. Maps covered the walls, marking archaeological sites with confirmed alien imagery. The Lena introduced him to Colonel Wei and an assembled think tank of experts, historians, anthropologists, game theorists, linguists, and, surprisingly, a group of children aged 8 to 12. The children? Samir questioned quietly. Their capacity for unconventional thinking has proven valuable, Elena explained. They notice patterns adults miss. Colonel Wei called the meeting to order. We've confirmed visitations dating back thousands of years, approximately every 2,000 to 3,000 years. Each time, they observe, then leave. The question is, what are they looking for? And why have we apparently failed previous assessments? A young girl with bright red hair raised her hand. Maybe they're like gardeners checking on plants. They planted us and come back to see how we're growing. Wei smiled kindly. An interesting theory, Maya. Samir projected images from his excavation. These symbols consistently appear alongside the ships in every archaeological finding. Dr. Bennett from linguistics believes they represent concepts rather than language, ideas the aliens consider important. Dr. Bennett, a slender woman with silver hair, stepped forward. We've identified recurring symbols for cooperation, growth, balance, and something we believe represents potential or possibility. There's another interpretation, Wei added grimly. These could be criteria, benchmarks humanity must meet to be considered. He hesitated. Worthy. Worthy of what? Someone asked. The room fell silent as the implications hung in the air. Salvation, partnership, or simply survival. An analyst burst into the room, tablet in hand. The probes are converging on historical sites. Every location with confirmed alien imagery is now surrounded by dozens of observers. On the main screen, footage showed probes gathering around Stonehenge, Göbekli Tepe, the Nazca Lines, and other ancient sites associated with astronomical alignments and unexplained construction methods. They're accessing their own historical records, Belina realized, comparing past assessments to present observations. The countdown on everyone's devices adjusted again. 10 days, 17 hours, 23 minutes, 5 seconds. Samir studied the ancient symbols projected on the wall, a sudden clarity washing over him. These aren't just records of their visits, he said quietly. They're instructions. They've been telling us what they're looking for all along. Judge Maria Delgado woke with a start, her heart pounding against her ribs. The dream had been so vivid she could still feel the weight of the decision in her hands. She had stood in a gleaming courtroom unlike any on Earth, tasked with an impossible choice. Save one brilliant scientist who might cure cancer or 100 ordinary people, including children. There had been no correct answer, only consequences. She reached for her phone, the screen showing 3:47 a.m. On impulse, she opened social media and typed, "Did anyone else dream about making an impossible choice last night?" The responses flooded in immediately, thousands of them. A farmer in Kenya described dreaming about choosing between his harvest and an endangered ecosystem. A nurse in South Korea dreamed of allocating limited medical supplies during a crisis. A teacher in Brazil dreamed of selecting which students would receive special educational opportunities. All different scenarios with the same underlying theme: ethical decision-making under pressure with no perfect solution. At the Pentagon Command Center, data analysts noticed the pattern by dawn. Dr. Elena Reyes and Colonel Wei stood before a wall of monitors displaying conversations about shared dreams from every continent. "It's them," Elena said with certainty. The probes are somehow inducing these shared experiences. Wei's expression remained neutral, but his eyes betrayed concern. Mass psychological manipulation. I'd call that an escalation. Dr. Samir Kapoor joined them, accompanied by Maya, the red-haired girl from the think tank. We've analyzed over 10,000 reported dreams, he explained. They're testing ethical frameworks across cultures, presenting scenarios that force people to prioritize different values. They're not looking for a right answer, Maya added, her young voice cutting through the tension. They're interested in how we think about the problems, how we justify our choices. Elena nodded thoughtfully. Not just whether we cooperate, but how we approach moral complexity. Outside the facility windows, the sky glowed with unusual activity. The alien motherships had begun constructing something in Earth's orbit, a massive structure that grew more complex by the hour. Telescope images showed components fitting together with impossible precision, forming what some scientists theorized might be a communication array, while others feared it could be a weapon. Public reaction split between wonder and terror. Religious leaders declared the aliens either divine messengers or demonic forces. Markets fluctuated wildly as companies speculated on potential alien technologies. Military forces worldwide remained on high alert, though the memory of missiles transforming into butterflies tempered aggressive responses. In her apartment that evening, Elena stared at the countdown on her tablet. 7 days, 14 hours, 38 minutes, 22 seconds. A decision formed in her mind, one she'd been contemplating since the dreams began. She dialed Colonel Wei's secure line. "I want to volunteer," she said when he answered. "For what exactly?" "Direct contact. The probes have established a pattern. They respond to human initiative. If we want answers before that countdown ends, someone needs to make the first move." Silence hung on the line before Wei responded. "The risks are incalculable." "So are the stakes," Elena countered. "The dreams, the ancient records, the behavior of the probes. They're not evaluating our defenses. They're evaluating our character, our potential. I need to show them we're willing to take the next step." Hours later, Elena stood in an open field where multiple probes had been consistently gathering. News cameras broadcasted globally as she walked toward the nearest teardrop-shaped observer. The world watched as she stopped beneath it and spoke clearly. "I volunteer to be your ambassador. Take me to your ship." A beam of golden light enveloped her, and Dr. Elena Reyes vanished from Earth's surface, her vital signs broadcasting to billions of anxious viewers from a small device on her wrist. Steady, calm, and very much alive. 3 days passed with no word from Dr. Elena Reyes beyond the steady vital signs transmitting from her wristband. The world held its collective breath, united in waiting. Then, without warning, she reappeared in the same field where she had departed, surrounded by a shower of golden light that dissipated like morning mist. Global networks interrupted all programming as Elena addressed humanity, her face showing no signs of fear, only profound understanding. "They haven't come to invade," she explained, her voice steady despite her obvious exhaustion. "They're here to identify civilizations worthy of salvation from an approaching cosmic catastrophe. They'd done this across thousands of worlds for millions of years." Before she could elaborate further, the screens broadcasting her return flickered and died. Across the planet, power grids failed in cascading blackouts. Cars stalled on highways, planes lost power but somehow glided safely to emergency landings, and every electronic device, more sophisticated than basic circuitry, stopped functioning. In Manhattan, investment banker David Chen stood bewildered in his high-rise office as the glass elevator he'd been riding automatically opened at the nearest floor, then shut down. Around him, the gleaming symbols of technological advancement became useless sculptures of metal and plastic. Through the window, he watched as New York City, one of humanity's proudest technological achievements, went silent and still. In rural Kenya, schoolteacher Amara Okafor felt the smartphone in her hand grow cold as it powered down, but the disruption to her daily life was minimal. Her village had intermittent electricity at best, and generations of knowledge about living without technology guided immediate community response. As darkness fell, they gathered in the village center, sharing resources and information through the most ancient of networks, human conversation. Similar scenes play out worldwide. Technology-dependent regions plunged into chaos, while less developed areas adapted quickly. The final challenge had begun. Survival without the tools humanity had grown dependent upon. Colonel Wei coordinated emergency response from a bunker designed to withstand electromagnetic pulses. Paper maps replaced digital displays as he deployed teams to maintain order in major cities. His radio operator managed to get a simple battery-powered set working, picking up transmissions from around the world. "Sir, you need to see this," the operator called, pointing outside where the night sky had transformed. Above them, spectacular auroras painted the darkness in shimmering curtains of light visible, even from traditionally non-polar regions. But these weren't natural northern lights. Embedded within the colored patterns were symbols, the same ancient glyphs found in archaeological sites worldwide. Dr. Samir Kapoor worked through the night by candlelight, translating the symbols with help from Maya and other children, whose minds seemed especially attuned to the alien communication. Their instructions, Samir realized, rushing his findings to Colonel Wei. The auroras are directing people to gather together rather than struggle alone. Communities that heeded this guidance discovered their local probes projecting maps, not electronically, but through simple light patterns on the ground. These paths led to supply caches and safe zones established in preparation for this moment. In New York, David Chen found himself following such a path with a group of strangers. Despite his wealth and status, he was now equal to everyone else, just another human seeking safety. When they reached their destination, Central Park, they found hundreds of others already gathered, organizing shelter and sharing resources. The countdown, no longer visible on defunct electronic devices, manifested in the sky itself, numbers formed by arrangements of stars that shouldn't have been possible. 24 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. As the cosmic countdown approached zero, the massive orbital structure activated, projecting a planetary shield that rippled with opalescent energy around Earth's atmosphere. From beneath this protective canopy, humanity watched in awe as the crystalline ships descended in perfect formation, touching down at precisely spaced intervals across the globe, one for each major population center. At Central Park, David Chen stood among thousands as the nearest vessel settled onto the Great Lawn, its surface reflecting the sunrise in fractal patterns. The gathered crowd fell silent as a portion of the ship's hull became transparent, revealing an interior chamber glowing with soft blue light. Dr. Elena Reyes emerged first, followed by beings unlike anything humanity had imagined. They weren't single entities but collectives, luminous assemblages of diverse species moving in perfect harmony. Some components appeared vaguely humanoid, others utterly alien, yet they functioned as unified organisms, communicating through pulses of light and synchronized movement. Similar revelations occurred simultaneously worldwide. In Kenya, Amara Okafor watched with her village as their visitors emerged. In Tokyo, Beijing, Moscow, London, and hundreds of other locations, the scene repeated with perfect coordination. Through speakers that required no electricity, the visitors addressed humanity in every known language simultaneously. "We are the collective," the being nearest to David explained, its voice resonating with multiple tones that somehow formed coherent speech. "We are the survivors from worlds that faced extinction." Elena stepped forward, acting as interpreter, though the words were clear to everyone. They come from dozens of civilizations that reached our current technological stage. Each faced what they call the Great Filter, a threshold where technological development outpaces wisdom. The collective's luminous form shifted, projecting images of worlds in various stages of collapse, some through environmental catastrophe, others through war with their own artificial intelligence creations, still others through resource depletion or cosmic impacts they were unprepared to survive. Of thousands of assessed species across the galaxy, fewer than 30 survived the evolutionary bottleneck that lies before you. The collective continued. Earth faces multiple extinction-level threats within the next century. The assessment was not to determine if humans could repel invaders. It was to evaluate whether humanity possesses the unique combination of traits needed for long-term survival. In the Pentagon bunker, Colonel Wei and Dr. Samir Kapoor watched the simultaneous broadcasts from around the world, their previous suspicions dissolving into understanding. The tests, Samir whispered. They weren't measuring our technology or military capability. Wei nodded slowly. They were measuring our humanity. The collective being expanded, its form growing more radiant. You stand at the precipice all advanced civilizations eventually face. Your capacity to destroy yourselves has outpaced your wisdom. Yet in our assessment, we observed qualities rare in the cosmos. The beam projected a montage of human responses during the tests, communities coming together during the technology blackout, ethical reasoning during the dream scenarios, creative problem-solving in crisis, and perhaps most importantly, the protection of the vulnerable when resources grew scarce. Your species possesses both individual brilliance and collective resilience. You compete yet cooperate. You question yet believe. You fear yet hope. This duality creates adaptability unlike any we have observed. As dawn broke over different continents in succession, the collective beings at each location delivered the final revelation with perfect synchronicity. The approaching cosmic storm will reach your solar system within 50 years. It will render your planet uninhabitable unless preparations begin immediately. Our assessment was not to judge if humans were worthy of conquest, but whether your species carries qualities worth preserving in the greater galactic community. The countdown in the stars reached 0, and for a moment, the world held its breath. Then, instead of ending, it reset. 50 years, 0 days, 0 hours, 0 minutes, 0 seconds. 3 months after the revelation, the collective established their primary Earth embassy in Antarctica. The once frozen continent had been transformed, not terraformed exactly, but adapted into a habitable middle ground where humans and the diverse species comprising the collective could coexist. Representatives from every nation gathered in the crystalline dome of the Grand Council chamber. Dr. Elena Rice sat beside Colonel Wei, who had been appointed head of Earth's defense coordination. The military man had traded his uniform for diplomatic attire, though his posture remained vigilant. Still don't entirely trust them, Elena asked quietly as they waited for the session to begin. Wei's expression softened slightly. Old habits, but I'm learning. The chamber hushed as the collective representatives entered. 5 luminous beings, each an amalgamation of different species who had survived their own extinction events. They no longer needed translators. Humanity had been quick to adapt to their methods of communication. We offer technology sharing with civilizations demonstrating creativity, adaptability, and moral growth, announced the Prime Collective, its voice resonating through the chamber. But we do not offer rescue. The path forward must be a partnership. Projected in the center of the chamber appeared Earth's dire prognosis. Environmental tipping points already passed, artificial intelligence developments approaching singularity faster than predicted, resource depletion accelerating, and looming beyond these immediate concerns, the approaching cosmic storm that would bathe the solar system in radiation beyond current human technology to withstand. You offer knowledge but not salvation, said President Ortiz of the United Nations Cooperative. What exactly does this partnership entail? The answer came not from the collective but from Maya, now formally appointed as a junior human ambassador due to her extraordinary intuitive understanding of the visitors. At 13, she had become a symbol of humanity's future. They don't want to save us, she explained, her young voice carrying wisdom beyond her years. They want us to save ourselves with their guidance, and then they want us to help save others. The Prime Collective rippled with approval. Precisely. During your assessment, you demonstrated something unique in our encounters with developing civilizations. When your technology failed, you created an unprecedented global communication network using everything from mirror signals to drum patterns to human messengers. Your capacity for both competition and cooperation, individual brilliance, and collective wisdom offers something rare in the galaxy. The terms of the partnership became clear. The collective would provide stabilization technology to heal Earth's damaged ecosystems and education on navigating technological dangers ahead. They would share defenses against the coming cosmic storm. In exchange, Earth would become a sanctuary for endangered species from dying worlds, and eventually join the galactic community as innovators and teachers. What followed was the most robust debate in human history. Fierce arguments about sovereignty, resource allocation, and the fundamental direction of human civilization. The collective observed without interference as humanity demonstrated exactly what had impressed them during the assessment: the capacity to passionately disagree, then find common ground. After 7 days of continuous negotiation, the Earth Cooperative Agreement was signed, not with the fearful submission of the conquered or the blind acceptance of the saved, but with the determined partnership of equals bringing different strengths to a common challenge. As the delegates departed, David Chen, now leading the resource transition team, stood with Amara Okafor, who had been appointed educational liaison between Earth and the collective. "The invasion we feared turned out to be an invitation," Amara said, gazing through the dome at the stars above. David nodded. "To the stars and beyond. Not as conquerors or the conquered," Elena added, joining them, "but as partners in survival." Wei concluded, his military bearing finally relaxed as he looked toward the future with something he hadn't felt in decades: hope.